Heyo, Bladman here. You have to excuse the shitty light. Let me do this. Maybe that's better. And the shitty hair and me getting fat. All these things are awesome. Also, you have to excuse that it's been forever since I posted a video, so that's fun too. A lot of interesting things have transpired. I just finished a show called Evergreen. Finished listening to a show called Evergreen. I should probably preface it. I was not acting in this particular thing. But I will say this. There was a lot of wonderful things that came about on listening to it. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about, was the general idea and concept of God mode. Like, I feel like there's a lot of talk, and perhaps I'm projecting, but I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of talk about what goes on if the world ends and how it could end. You watch things like Three Body Problem or the show Evergreen or whatever, and you're like, oh, yeah, well, that's a possibility. And this is not new. It's not new. This has been transpiring for a while. It just feels kind of extra right now. So what I wanted to talk about was the simple concept of this God mode. Hey, knock it off, dude. Sorry. My dog, he likes to tear up the thing because he wants me to throw the ball. So I'm going to try and throw the ball to him while talking to you about this. Anyways, the short version of it is this. Talking to a couple buddies of mine, and the concept of, hey, if stuff hits the fan, you know, yada yada, we want to do this and that and the other thing. Okay, cool. The question I've had is like, oh, well, be in groups, right? You know, groups, like good groups, 100 and 200, 300, 500 people. And all three of my buddies are like, no, group of like 15. And I was like, okay, but that's hard to maintain and whatever and yada yada yada. And their argument was, yeah, but you have a lot more control in that environment. And what I'm running into that I think is very interesting is in different things. One in Evergreen, where you get kind of like a megalomaniac person who's like, I have all the control. I have all the control. I will do what I want. He didn't sound that way. He just wanted to do it. Or you get shows like Last of Us, where you get examples of different groups and they make decisions, which I'm going to do a Last of Us video later. And it makes you ask questions of like, what would you be okay with? And there is that problem of like, yeah, in a larger group, you'll have better survival in theory. But then that means you effectively have to be okay with somebody making decisions that you may not like. And while I think of that, that's really just true with big corporations as well. Like, I work for a small company. I'm like the single employee, and then I'll like hire a couple other guys that we work with, but it's pretty much just me as the employee. And it's very interesting because, like, if I don't like this dude, I just leave. Like, I just leave. And I know him personally. Like, we're friends. Like, I'm going to go on their family camping trip. Like, we're friends. That's not true with, like, Google employees. Like, yeah, they'll have, like, Google stuff or whatever. Same with, like, Microsoft or Facebook or whatever. But the real question is, like, hey, do you know the life of your boss? Like, do you know what he's like? Do you know what he does? Do you know his family's names? I would argue that most of them don't. And not that that's a problem, and not that you have to do that, not that everybody has to work in a small company, but I just challenge you to really like think for a second and be like, hey, do I jive with the people I do work for? Or am I just doing this for the paycheck? Because my argument is, if you're just doing it for the paycheck, I understand we all need to make money, but perhaps you should find something that is more copacetic with how you want to operate. Because you get moral questions and moral stuff. And I just saw a video today about the Boeing guy. The guy that was basically whistleblowing about how Boeing was messing up stuff. And fundamentally, it's like he worked for them for like 30 odd years and then tried to be like, hey, this is not okay, ad nauseum, and they ignored him. And finally he became a whistleblower, and then they just like go to town on him with lawyers, and then he suicided. And it's a whole sus thing, and it's messed up. But that stuff happens, and my problem is, and maybe this is a overdone point, is we as individuals have autonomy. We can choose where we buy stuff, how we do stuff, whatever. Like we do have control. A lot of it has been taken away, but we do as individuals have control. What's missing though is that people seem to not realize that, and they just make choices, and it's like, well, everything from watching movies to what streaming services you use to that's just all movie related, but like what kind of food you eat, where you go to buy your food, all these things, those are choices that you make. You have a choice. You have that freedom to do that. If you don't believe it, go to another country like Cuba, where you're gonna run into like the lack of options. We still have options here. We still have freedom here to some extent in America. So utilize it and be like, hey, I will spend an extra $1 for chicken or whatever, buying from a company that I trust more. Like, don't get Foster's chicken. Sorry, guys, they're horrible. But, you know, just and do your own research. Don't just take my word on it. Don't take other people's word on it. Do your own research. But this is the thing. And in listening to this show, I thought it was fascinating because you ran into this problem where it's like, okay, cool, I don't want to spoil anything. But basically, somebody's like, I'm going to take over and have control. And basically, you have to do what I say. And there's a time you have to go to sleep. And it was like total communistic and like, oh, and then you're good at this type of work, so you do that, and you're the doctor, you do that, and yada, yada, yada. And I understand the value of utility, but communism doesn't work, and that concept doesn't work. And frankly, it was just dictatorship in the form of communism, which is really what communism is, by the way. But anyways, great show, Evergreen. Good listen. If you have Apple, just podcast, you just go type in Evergreen and you'll find it. I don't know about Android users. Sorry, guys. But yeah, honestly, I would suggest that. My wife is on a road trip right now. She suggested it, so we did it and blew through it. I think it was 9 episodes, like 45 minutes each or something like that. Anyhow, this is it for today. Plaidman out. I love you all. Feel free to comment. You know, hey, where have you been? Whatever. I'm healthy, still balding. Still fat. Sorry, I just look at my face and I'm like, oh my God, that's... Oh. All right, I love you all. Plaidman out. Bye.